Welcome back, Soil Nation, into the Top Soil Podcast headquarters right here in Ainsworth,
Soil
Iowa.
Nation World Headquarters.
It is.
Yeah.
Right here in Washington County, Iowa. We're super excited about this episode because we have...
A professional.
Yeah. Somebody who's way smarter than us. Delaney Howell, graduate of Columbus Junction High School, grew up here in southeast Iowa.
Right down the road.
Yep, and now is doing a bunch of stuff, which we'll let her fill you in on. But one thing that we would like to bring up is she actually is doing a podcast of her own called Ag News Daily. It's about 30 minutes every day. We highly recommend you check that out. It's really well put together. Great podcast.
Overview. Well, you can get into what all it is.
Yeah. So we kind of live in the niche world over here with soil health and stuff, but she deals with just everything, and it's just really good. So check that out. But I want to introduce Delaney, and maybe just tell us a little bit about what you've been working on.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me here at the Soil Nation headquarters.
Right.
Pretty neat. Like they said, I host a daily podcast, and we cover pretty much the gamut of agriculture. We cover news, we cover policy, weather, trade, markets, technology, and agriculture. We like to talk about it all. We're not, Mike Pearson, my co-host, and I each say, we have a lot of knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't go very deep sometimes. So we kind of just try to cover the whole gamut of agriculture. And then besides that, we host that every day, every weekday, and 30 minutes in length, like you mentioned. Then I also am the new host of Market to Market. Just started my role there about 2 months ago, I think. I think this week's my 2-month anniversary for that. So we do a lot of market discussion there, get to work one-on-one with market analysts, talking to them about what's going on in the commodity markets, which I'm sure you guys pay a lot of attention to. And on top of that, I do some freelancing for This Week in Agribusiness. I have a radio program on Your Ag Network, which is in the upper Midwest, about 22 stations I think they're up to now. And then I also do a little bit of marketing on my own. I have my own video production marketing company and help with marketing strategies for ag businesses.
Yeah.
So
that's sweet.
Try to do it all. I don't have one full-time job, as I'm sure you wear
a
many hats.
A lot of different stuff, but they all tie together,
though,
too.
Exactly. And I think growing up on a farm, that teaches you have to wear a lot of different hats, and you know, you have to diversify. You have to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that fills right into what we're talking about, though, too, as far as like diversifying on the farm, but going off the farm and finding diversity there too. You know that, like, yeah, we both farm, but we've got companies too, in order to diversify, in order to have multiple revenue streams coming in.
Sometimes the farm doesn't make enough money, and you have to look at other options.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think sometimes, like, one of the things is, like, it's always been interesting to me is how much we give up of the dollar that you can make, you know.
I know. I think it's 20 cents a farmer gets back off of every dollar.
Yeah.
It's like
I think maybe it's even less than that now.
And so you're giving 80 cents up to basically distribution and marketing, right?
And manufacturing, all that stuff.
Which at one time, like in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, like post World War II, to be able to put infrastructure in to do that, it was super expensive. So like these companies that had the means to do that they got bigger, right? Like if you look at General Mills and these type of companies. And what's fascinating to me is that, like, the internet has changed that game. You know, you guys who are listening to my podcast have heard me say that. Like, the internet won, and you can distribute. You know, if you can manufacture from your farm for literally nothing, like free. You know, okay, some small startup infrastructure, right? But to be able to distribute to millions of people worldwide costs nothing. You know,
it's
you
phenomenal.
can do it on Facebook.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And like, do you know, what's your thoughts, like, from a long-term position? How do you like maybe foresee like where the internet plays into agriculture long-term?
I'm going to come at it first from a media perspective, since I'm a media person.
Well, that's exactly what you've done. Like, you've basically gone away from the big media organizations that we just do it ourselves.
Exactly. I mean, I think you guys know that from starting your own podcast. There are traditional TV and radio platforms. People still listen to that stuff, still watch it. But the next generation, I mean, you guys are both part of the next generation that wants it at your fingertips. You want it now. You want that instant gratification, and I think that's what podcasts and Netflix and streaming services give people. That's why we started a podcast, and I'm sure, you know, you've probably thought about that too. And then when you look at it from an ag perspective, I think there are so many tools out there that agriculture is not yet utilizing. Like, agriculture as a technology-based industry is one of the most advanced industries, But when you come at it from a perspective of these are the tools available to then market
Right.
those products,
Yeah.
I think that's where we kind of fall behind some of those other industries. But to give agriculture credit, a lot of people are doing a better job about telling their story, right? That's what we always hear. How do you tell your story?
Yeah.
You know, using social media. And as that next generation, as our generation is coming into the space, going back to the farm, taking on ag roles, ag leadership roles, I think that's how we kind of embrace that next generation of agriculture, because like the millennial generation wants to know where their food's coming from, how it's being made, and we have the tools to do it. We just, I don't know if it's because we're scared or we're playing defense, we're worried about what people are going to say, but I think we can do a better job.
Well, it's just so much different than the typical way of doing it too, where you sell it on whatever the price is, or you could
I think,
play the game and you can market it in the future.
I
But
think we can be price makers instead of price takers with the tools that are out there.
that's exactly what we've been talking
Wow.
so much.
I've never heard somebody say it like that.
No,
I'm
but
gonna steal
what
that.
was good on that
makers,
price makers? Yeah, so I like that. And then talking about in telling our story, then monetize that.
Absolutely.
That's the thing,
100%.
you know. So I think that's part of what we've been talking about too. But that's a missing piece that we've been saying. Okay, you need to be able to direct market what you're producing, direct market it to the consumer. Well, maybe it's more so you need to tell that story first,
And
then say, hey, I'm selling this stuff too.
Yeah.
If you want to back me up, you like this story that
think-
you're hearing, here you go.
I think whoever comes up with the idea of how to tell your story best, like if somebody made that into a business, you're going to make $1 million.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to make millions of dollars,
There you
but
go.
maybe billions. I don't know. Whoever is smart enough to come up with one, maybe not one foolproof way, but a plan of how to do that and how
Right.
to integrate agriculture into telling their story.
Yeah.
I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it'd be me. Who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe it's going to be somebody that's 10 right now. But
Right.
whoever does it, it's going to be phenomenal.
But it doesn't take much to do it.
No.
Okay, so
It's
we were.
just, I think the consistency of doing it time and time again and doing it on a large scale. I think that's the
Yeah,
problem
it's
right
how
now,
do you
it's the large
scale it?
scale.
Because we talk about guys like Gabe Brown and Russell and some of these guys that are direct marketing and doing a really good job, but it's on their
Killing it.
one farm.
And I think, I can't remember, I was at a conference. I think I was at the National Association of Farm Broadcasters conference this past year in Kansas City. Pretty sure that's where I heard it. But somebody was saying, we need to start playing defense, or we need to stop playing defense and start playing offense. We're so worried about what people are going to think or how people are going to react to our message that we don't necessarily even put out a message sometimes. Sometimes it's like somebody will post something on Facebook and you'll see something about an incorrect message, maybe it's GMOs or organics or whatever, and then we go in and say, well, look, here's the facts, here's what we see, here's our story, but we're not doing that ahead of time. We're not being proactive as a market. We're being
the voices,
reactive.
the outside voices are louder than ours a
Exactly.
lot of times.
Yeah.
And the outside voices that are loud can be telling the wrong story.
And
like I said.
you know, I'm gonna say it, like some people play really dirty, and agriculture doesn't play dirty, and sometimes I think we need to. Like people outside of the industry, people in DC that are making the policy, they don't care.
That's right.
They don't know what's
It's all
going
about
on
the
out
dollars
here.
and cents.
They're
Yeah.
gonna tell the story that they want to spin, and oftentimes it's telling agriculture in a negative light.
So to build on that, look at the whole organic standard in the organic labeling.
Just the
Yeah.
Look at the
yeah,
label
labeling.
of organic and
Absolutely.
how that's been
Yeah,
just
it's
down.
ridiculous.
Literally,
Or the GMO stuff. Like
Yeah.
you go to the store and it's like, oh, this peach or whatever is soil-free, non-GMO, gluten-free,
Yeah. It's like
water-based.
they all are.
Like
Yeah.
just this long list of like crap.
Yeah.
And the companies that have done this marketing job have done a phenomenal job because everybody buys it. They're going to pay a premium for this extra special label, but agriculture hasn't done a good enough job.
And that's the
saying,
thing. We can hate on that as long as we want. We can say,
Nobody's
well, that's
doing
all
anything,
crap,
though.
but
Yeah.
they're making a lot of
I know.
money doing
Making
that. And
80 cents of every dollar doing it.
Well, but
know
I'm
what
saying
I mean?
just
Like,
by
that's
just
the
by
fact.
labeling
Yeah.
it with all these different things
Yeah.
to fill a need,
Mm-hmm.
and we say, well, that organic, they're selling for $9 a bushel, where we're getting $3.50 a bushel for corn, and it's not any better, versus what we're producing. Well, but the market. There's a big market that's saying, well, we want that one.
That's
And
right.
you know,
So instead of saying, well, screw that, we don't want to do that, we need to say, okay, where's the market actually at, and make money on it.
And to bring it back
it's smart.
to
It's
bring it back
economics.
to like what you guys do with soil health and plant health, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, even just visiting your farm today, Mitchell, the amount of work and time and dedication that you go into for caring for the land, for being good stewards of the land and taking care of it and the environment.
Gotta tell the story.
We have to tell that story. Like you guys are I'm
Right.
microbial biology whatever you're talking about today. Like some of it is way over my head, but at the same time, I'm so in awe because you know what you're talking about, and you're so passionate, and people just need to see that don't
Right.
relate directly to agriculture.
Well, we've let someone else shape that message for how long? Years.
Yeah.
And
It's not getting any better. People
It's
are
not getting
moving
any better.
farther and farther away from
but
the
don't you
farm.
think that there is also this disconnect in the farming community right now, where people are saying, you know what, this urban consumer is just a fad. Like this whole thing, like non-GMO,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
all
These specialty
it's all
markets,
mislabeling,
green.
and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. You can't feed the world like create farming organically, and you get so like it will just ignore it and it'll go away. What's your thoughts? Do you see that being something that's
Yeah.
going to just go away, or do you think that consumer? I mean, the disconnect between the urban and the rural is so big and so wide now, and it's the people who control the marketing in the ag industry, big ag companies they want it that way, right? Because that translates to dollars. So do you think that that's something that'll just cycle through, or do you think that consumer is just going to continually be susceptible to these marketing?
I think the first thing that we need to accomplish is to establish the fact that we are still consumers. As farmers, we're still consumers. By putting ourselves in two separate boxes as the consumers versus the farmers, I think that right there creates a big division. Because we are consumers, we still are consuming the foods that we're producing, and I think that's maybe the way we get past it, by putting ourselves in the same category, by saying these are the same foods that we're feeding our families, our kids. We're not making something with extra chemicals to send into big cities. Like it's not us versus you. We're all on the same team. But from your perspective of these big companies are doing things, I have mixed feelings, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, because I have a lot of opinions on like the Monsantos and Syngentas and the pioneers out there, because they're taking up a lot of market share, and they're expanding and acquiring one another and merging. So I think that as a domestic, or what's the word I'm looking for? As a society, we are based on this idea of free trade and free marketplace.
Right.
But when we have that stuff happening in agriculture, that's not really.
It's taking away some of that free market stuff.
Exactly.
But I think that opens up the door then for the little guy to be able to get
It
in
does.
and do it direct market.
Absolutely.
But you're only direct marketing as much as you can physically sell yourself.
Yeah.
Which that's
You're
why
pulling
they
yourself
have
up by
big
the
companies
bootstraps.
to sell.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a chicken and the egg kind of problem, but I love talking about it.
Oh yeah.
Well, I
Well,
think-
that's the thing. Like,
When we look at and this is kind of my theory, but I think when we look at agriculture, you're going to have two waves that emerge. One is that you're always going to have these foreign markets that are going to live off of $3 a bushel, or wherever we're at with corn prices right now. That's not going anywhere, right? You'll always have that dump of the domestic market, but these farmers are going to get bigger. Like we see that technology has allowed that. The guys have gone from 2,000 acre farmers being big farmers. Now guys farm 3 states. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
10,000, 15,000, 20,000. So that'll happen. That'll continue. But it's how do millennials coming back to try and get to the farm, with a lot of guys who are looking at this market saying, I'm not going to take on the debt to chase the 4,000 acres from 800 acres, right? Which is what you kind of have to do to survive. How is the 800 acre farmer going to pass that on to a millennial coming back and be sustainable?
That's the $1 million question.
I think it has to do with they're going to have to go back to the producing things the way that you can produce them and get that full dollar.
And
Well,
diversify, of course. And
yeah.
to throw another
And that fits
one-
right into
Yeah,
your
yeah,
guys'
I
farm
know.
too. Like
Yeah.
we were talking about this before, like we started recording, that Delaney's farm, like they're literally right in the middle of this too,
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like
Yeah, well, kind of. Maybe I shouldn't say it yet, but yeah, my parents are building a greenhouse, or a she shed, as my mom calls it. If you've seen the Geico commercial where the lady's she shed burns down, but so they're working on building a greenhouse right now, and just looking at maybe some other options for what we can do to continue to market ourselves and market the farm. And like gardening is a big hobby for a lot of people. So if you're doing that, why wouldn't you sell it in a market like Des Moines or Kansas City or Chicago, like someplace people are going to pay more money to get local, homegrown, home-sourced foods? So we're kind of looking into that right now, but I think that's maybe the next big thing for agriculture. And then I want to throw in one more monkey wrench, because I've done a lot of traveling abroad, and I think the next thing that we also should be prepared for is the idea that there are developing countries that are going to be coming into the markets, and as people become more developed countries, they can afford to buy higher quality foods, higher quality proteins.
Yeah.
Proteins like beef, which, you know, as your economy grows, the more beef and pork and chicken you buy.
But they'll also be more conscious to how that beef's being produced.
Right.
Exactly.
Which has been kind of
And that's
not
why I think
true
we need
till
to
today.
accomplish this mission of how do we tell this story before that happens.
100%.
Yeah. Well, so what we've talked about here on previous episodes was farmers for a couple decades have been given the mantra that we have to feed the world, 9.5 billion people, and it's on us as like Iowa farmers or Midwest farmers. What's your take? I mean, that's like right on what we're talking. Like, what's your take on that? I guess on do we have to feed the world?
Well, I mean, I think we were talking a little bit earlier because you said you've been to Africa. You see that they're trying to learn these practices, but the reality is they don't have the infrastructure. They don't have sometimes the climate or the soil type or temperatures to do what we do in the U.S. So I think other countries are trying to be more competitive. I mean, when you look at what's going on in South America with Brazil and Argentina, their soybean and corn crops are humongous. I mean, they are the biggest competitors with the U.S. right now, and what we're watching for to see how the market prices move. But I think a lot of countries are interested in developing their agricultural systems and being more competitive on an international scale. I mean, you look at all the trade issues going on right now. We have China tariffs, NAFTA, the new Chorus agreement, working on bilateral trade agreements with Japan and all the other Asian countries. Those are big countries that are up and coming. And then there's Africa, which is kind of like this unknown entity. I mean, we're really not doing anything with them, but that's going to be the next area to develop and see what comes out of their agriculture system. And maybe it's nothing, but I think the African people are pretty resourceful, so I think they're going to be
and they're going to need other stuff too. So whether it be directly selling corn and soybeans, or that's ethanol and those kind of things.
Actually, what's it called? It's the Chinese Road Belt Initiative, I think, is the official name. China's investing a lot of dollars in Africa, Europe, like those underdeveloped parts, to get rail systems built, so then China can get their stuff through Asia, through Europe, to ports or to other parts of Europe. So I mean, China's also going to be a big competitor for the U.S. and I mean, they already are. It's so weird, or I don't know what the right word is. It's weird to me that China is still considered a developing country, even though they race the U.S. for being number 1 and number 2 in the world economies. Like, why are they still considered a developing country? I mean, part of it is because they're going at such a massive scale and they have a high birth rate and whatever, but I don't understand that sometimes.
But don't they have such a massive country? I mean, that's part of it, is that like where they're developed, they are like, they're elite, right?
Absolutely,
But where they're not, they are third
poor
world
and
the best, you know?
Yeah, the farming portions are poor. Very poor.
But then you go into their cities and they're way more advanced than what we are.
I literally just watched a documentary last night on China with the one-child law. You know, and all
which is
these
out of effect
repercussions.
now. Yep.
Yeah, well, now it's two-child.
Yep.
Right? But all the repercussions are happening now because of the disproportion of the sexes.
It's terrible that they would just get rid of
the females.
The female kids.
Because they wanted a male.
Because they wanted a male to continue the family name, and because males could provide better for the families.
Right.
Yeah.
So China's got some interesting things going on over there.
For sure.
Know. But that was crazy. But anyways.
While we're on that though, what is like that you guys have obviously been following the tariff stuff a lot. We talked about that last week. Just getting some insight. What's your like kind of 2 cents on that whole deal?
That's a tough one because you come at it from two perspectives of they're just puffing their chest out trying to show off. I mean, President Trump, of course,
he's doing the same thing.
He's doing the same thing. It's to see who throws in their towel first. Right. That's one perspective. The other one is China is just waiting to see, and they're gonna enact this when we least expect it. Yeah. That's what I've heard some analysts say. You know, they're going to wait and see when President Trump maybe is up for re-election or something happens. They need a card in their back pocket. They need some leverage. Then they're going to enact it later. The market certainly reacted to that news when we had it, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. And it was a short reaction. I think that's been kind of priced out of the market now. But it's definitely something that we have to continue to watch. I don't think guys are going to switch acres from soybeans to corn. I haven't heard a lot of that yet, but
so they can get the corn planted.
Yeah, we got to plant.
That's the next challenge, right?
Exactly.
But so, do you think that there's going to be long term? Like, do you think for corn, I know China doesn't import a lot of corn, and we did a kind of a show on this last week, but do you think that corn will, market-wise, just market outlook, the corn's in a good shape to be, like July or December contracts look pretty attractive right now?
I think they do.
Okay.
There's some market analysts that are a little more bullish than others. Some are saying, maybe we'll hit $6 corn by 2019. I don't know if I'm that optimistic, but I think out of all
What
three,
do they say would be driving that?
I don't know.
Because stocks are lower, trendline yields we've been hitting.
We're at, this is the best economy we've had in a long time, and when you look at what's going on in the stock markets, that money, those fund positions are trickling into the commodity markets, and they need somewhere to invest those dollars, and they're thinking corn, soybeans, wheat, they look attractive. I think out of all three of those grains, corn probably has the most bullish story. And I'm not a market analyst, full disclosure.
Just for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, of course. I talk to market analysts every week, and this is kind of the insight I've gathered from them.
Yes.
All of them say corn is the bullish story. That's the one to really be watching here, especially over this next year.
So I'm good with not selling my corn yet.
Yeah.
All right, good deal.
Well, you gotta you gotta look at getting rid of some
Maybe
of it
sell
here
some
as
of it.
we get into
I'd be a third forwarded, if I was
Yeah.
doing it for sure. But